Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Top DPS Week 2. Let's see which classes have risen from the ashes in comparison to Week 1. And let's use doing better in Week 2. I imagine, like always, warriors are going to start to rise, and hunters will start to fall over time. Unless hunters are just insane. We'll just have to see. That being said, I ended up getting number 2 mage in the world last week. Let's see if I've fallen. But first, let's filter by 95th percentile, and let's see what the hunters are still on top. Rogues are second. Affliction warlocks are showing to be dominant. Feral druids and then mages. One thing in common about all these classes that I see up here, except for Assassination Rogue, is that all these classes are fairly dominant in AoE damage. As you know, there are 2, 3, 4 fights in Molten Core, 5 fights, 4 fights in Molten Core that have multiple mobs, 4 or more mobs that you can hit at the same time. So that is going to be bringing up the AoE classes. However, Assassination Rogue able to hold its own primarily with just single target damage, which is very, very impressive. So Assassination Rogue's proving to be, in my opinion, what I think is the king of single target. And then, of course, Hunters, the king of AoE. Close second is Feral Affliction Warlock with the 5 target king. And then Fire Mage kind of just able to hold its own with a little bit of single target as well as AoE DPS. Let's change this to a range of 1 week and see. This is over the... So the game has been out for 2 weeks now. So let's change this to a range of 1 week to see what's changed in the past week. It looks like Feral Druids are starting to outscale Warlocks and Mages. And Feral Druids are starting to become very strong. Now, I have a feeling that we'll probably see Feral Druids very high in the AoE cleave department this week. And Hunters, Marksmen, and Survival Hunters both proving to be on top right now, which I think is a good thing. And I'm going to say why. Because Hunters are the only pure DPS class left. Every other class is technically a utility class now, because they can tank or DPS or heal and DPS. Hunter is the only class left in the game that has all 3 specs doing damage. And if we change this to 1 day, Assassination Rogues have outscaled every single person in the game. If we change it to 1 day. That being said, let's move on and let's take a look at some of the top performers for each boss. And let's see on the overall damage here. It looks like... okay, so we'll go... So here's me. I ended up being number 26 in the world last week. Number 4th Fire Mage in the world. And above me there is 4 Rogues. A lot of Hunters. We'll call this 2 Warlocks in the top 25-ish in the world, 4 Mages, 4 Rogues, 2 Druids, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 Hunters. It is a Hunter's world, and we are all just living in it right now. However, that being said, I do think that Hunter's damage is really getting carried by a lot of the fights in Molten Core being multi-target. So we are really going to have to see how the things play out as the warriors start to get more gear. Let's see if we have Monkey News at 39, Sisu at 56, and of course this is after 2 runs of Molten Core. And Kara and Wiggs here, 4 warriors in the top 100. We have a sprinkle of some enhancement shamans. About 3 or 4 enhancement shamans and a couple of Destro locks. 2 Shadow Priests, 3 Shadow Priests. Okay, so there you go. So you have your S tier classes right here. Your Warlocks, Mages, a couple of Shadow Priests, a couple Feral Druids, mainly Hunters, and then your Mages. I do have a feeling that once Warriors get full BIS, that they will out-sim everybody. And they will be very strong. So for starters, we could take a look and see what trinkets are the hunters running. Devil Sore Eye, Black Hand's Breath. Most of them are running Devil Sore Eye because if the fights are really short, they'll be running a Devil Sore Eye, and then if they're longer, they'll probably swap to the Black Hand's Breath, and then maybe the Royal Seal. It looks like a lot of people are going with less fire resistance overall now. So let's take a look and see which classes are top on which boss. So Lucifron is more of a single target boss. I'm kind of wondering on these logs if the damage to the adds is included. On Lucifron, we just usually single target down Lucifron, but some people, it's looking like WoW Logs is counting damage done to the adds. So in order to pad your stats on this boss, you need to tank all the adds on top of the boss so that you can cleave them down, which is kind of monka to me. I wish on this boss that the Flamewalker Protector damage wasn't included in the logs. Let's take a look at the entire raid. So yeah, you have... These are the people probably doing single target damage, and then the hunters are just padding their stats with explosives, and the warrior's probably doing whirlwinds. Yeah, 10% of his damage is whirlwind. So on Lucifron, the add damage is included, which is kind of monka. I don't really like that, but I guess that's how all of these guys on the main page are actually doing as high damage as they are, is primarily because they're figuring out ways to pad their stats on the damage, which that damage doesn't matter at all. Let's check out... So if you want to do 2000 DPS on Lucifron, you need to have the tank all... You need to have the off-tank tank the adds right on top of the boss. Let's take a look at Magmadar. Magmadar is pretty much a pure single target fight. However, let's take a look at how some people are doing 4,000 DPS. Simonize is number 4 on this list. Let's see if they're doing any type of cleave here in order to achieve this damage. No, this is pure Envenom Mutilate. I do not see any type of Blade Flurry or anything here. This is all pure single target damage. The rogues are able to pull off 4,000 DPS single target. Mage is 2.8 right here. Highest mage, 3.6k. I'm imagining he's going with the Balefire Bolt. Yeah, and he really didn't have to cast many Frostfire Bolts at all. So the closer that the boss dies to the mage's 9th Balefire Bolt, the more damage that he will do. And the more crits that he gets to maintain his Ignite is a lot of RNG. But wow, this is impressive that rogues are just really able to pump out this kind of damage. Very close to 4k top end. Let's take a look at the rogue weapons to see what they're using really fast. Rogue is using Fell Striker main hand, Distracting Dagger offhand. Wow, so maybe Fell Striker in the main hand is more effective than what a lot of the other rogues are running, which is that Broken Bottle thing from the Tur vendor. Fell Striker main hand, Distracting Dagger offhand. That seems to be the meta. I really like that Fell Striker, a pretty hard weapon to get. I mean, you have to run a lot of Ren runs in order to get the Fell Striker to drop, is the best item for the rogues. I think that that's amazing, and there needs to be a lot more items like that in the game, like, you know, Princess runs for Mage. That's classic to me, and I think that that's really, really iconic to the classic loot style. Okay, Gehennis. This is a fight that has adds. However, a lot of people in speedruns or like faster runs, they tend to ignore the adds altogether. Simonize has the #1 DPS on this fight, and I'm guessing that this is also pure single target with a very fast kill time, 45 seconds. And Simonize is able to do 4,000 DPS. So this is pretty much the standard for rogues. They're able to hold their own overall in single target damage by just hitting the boss, which is incredible. A lot of the other classes are topping the meters by, you know, padding stats with the adds. I'm wondering if anybody that is an AoE class like these hunters, explosive trap effect, are they hitting the other enemies? 500 of his DPS is going on to the adds. So I'm guessing that you could do a lot more damage here if you were padding your stats on the adds. It's looking like the Flamewalker damage is included here. and it's being added into his total, the damage that the ads are taking. So once again, another fight where it's either going to be all rogues and looks like feral druids are second on single target right now, which is pretty insane. But if you do want to parse, you're probably looking at maybe getting some whirlwinds in there on a warrior and bringing in those ads so that you can cleave them as well. All right, let's drop this down to Gar. Now Gar is pretty much a range DPS fight because the melee are getting knocked back a lot, where like a hunters can kind of separate themselves from the pack and probably get knocked back less so they can have more uptime. Looks like I'm #1 mage on this fight, doing 3k DPS. Let's see what people are doing. I believe that I believe they're cleaving the ads off the boss or just targeting the boss directly. So let's take a look. All enemies, they are targeting the fire swarm, and even the magmakin that come out of the boss are getting cleaved. So 100 of his damage went on magmakin, the little exploding ads that come out of the boss. And 1400 of DPS was on the ads, and 2.3k DPS was on the boss. So the closer you can tank the ads to the boss on this fight, the more overall damage you can do, and that's looking to be the theme here. Let's take a look at what I'm doing on this fight. I'm not really sure why I'm so much higher than everybody else on this fight, on the mages. It looks like all of my damage was single target, and I was just having my living bombs cleave the boss. I mean, this looks like a very clean, just 3k DPS single target. We're not doing anything cheesy. We don't kill ads on Gar, so this was a pure single target fight for me. I'm not really sure. We can see how much DPS. I do 159 DPS to the ads and 10 DPS to the magmakin just from my living bombs hitting the main target. So I'm actually not really sure why I'm #1 mage in the world in this fight. I'm literally just doing single target damage, where as I imagine that this record will get shattered once people start doing parse runs where they tank all the ads together and they decide to see who can do AoE damage as part of padding to raise the numbers here. That being said, let's go to Shazra. This is a pure single target fight, and it's very short. There's a little bit of movement, so yes, I imagine that this is going to be a lot of a 1 minute 16-second fight on average. A lot of rogues on this one. Couple of warriors, actually. Are warriors doing anything specific here? Now just pure single target. So in this pure single target situation, you're going to have your melee. Your melee is going to obviously outshine everybody in a short single target fight situation. I mean, there are no mages here because this is actually a spell reflect fight. So you're not going to see any casters in the top 100 in this fight. Bobka down here at 100. I mean, it's just all melee and hunters. Unfortunately, hunters just don't suffer from any mechanics. Like, they don't have to do really anything other than just do damage. They don't have to buff the raid. They don't have to get spell reflected. They don't suffer from being in melee. So they just can have 100% uptime on the boss, and they don't actually have to do anything. So that's why you'll have a lot of hunters and melee on this fight, which is very, very clear who the top DPS are on this fight. Just basically all the melee, with rogues being the overwhelmingly majority. So Baron Geddon is a single target fight, but you're going to start seeing a lot of ranged DPS here. And this is a bit of RNG on this fight because some people will get more bombs than others and they'll have to run out. So I'm hoping that this week I don't get any bombs at all and I can just sit there and pump DPS to get my numbers up, because I had a pretty bad parse on Baron. I think I got like 3 or 4 bombs in a row last week. So unfortunately, I just did not get a good parse. But these mages that are kind of able to just sit there and turtle and tunnel and do their 3k DPS, these are the ones that are going to be on top, it looks like. And, their living bombs can do damage while they run away. Sulfuron, this is the only pure 5 target fight in the game. He has 4 ads, and then, of course, the main target. So Warlock should be top. Warlock Shadow Bolt hits 5 targets. They put a corruption on each target, and then they just spam Shadow Bolt for the rest of the fight. So these Warlocks could do around 7k DPS by just pressing Shadow Bolt for the majority of the fight. And I imagine he puts Corruption on every target. There it is. Corruption on 5 targets, and then Shadow Bolt, Shadow Bolt, Shadow Bolt, Shadow Bolt. Very nice. And yeah, then he's able to straight up pump the highest. I mean, no one should be able to compete on this at all. There's a mage that's doing close to 5k damage. His majority of his damage will probably be, a lot of it will probably be from the frozen orbs, and then it'll be all living bombs after that. And my guess, he's doing a the cold snap tech where you frozen orb, cold snap, frozen orb, and then you just living bomb spam on everything. Is he actually putting out any living flames? No. Wow. Okay, this is surprising to me. No, there is a living flame here. He did 4 living flames. I was about to say, because that's a lot of damage per global. Living flame, I was wondering if he wasn't actually pressing that. Mage probably has one of the hardest AoE rotations. Not that it's hard, it just has a... You press more buttons than everybody else, I think. You have Living Flame, Living Bomb, Frozen Orb, and then you have to Blast Wave, Kona Cold, and sometimes Arcane Explosion. So you're doing like maybe a 6 or 7 button AoE rotation as a mage, whereas most other classes like 2 buttons. 1 button sometimes, just depending. So there's the 5 target. 5 target, obviously, Kings is gonna be Warlocks. Going to Golmag, this is a pure single target. I kind of want to see, damn, Simonize able to do 4.1k DPS on this boss. That's very impressive. Simonize looking to possibly be the #1 rogue in the world here if he can continue topping the meters like this on these single target fights. I kind of want to see if any... he does have some damage on these core Ragers. No, he does not. Okay, so it's pure single. Yeah, pure single target. I am curious to see if any Hunters... the top hunter here is cleaving the ads, if any of that damage is included, or if it's all single target damage. Wow, they are tanking the core Ragers, and this is massive pad. 2k damage is to the Ragers. No, it's actually... So 400 DPS is done to this Rager, another 400 to the other, and then 2.7. So 800 DPS on top of this is the only reason that the Hunter is included in here at all. So I really hope that WoW Logs like removes the damage done to the ads at some point. Unless their goal was to try and help the classes that can pad on the ads. It's just the thing is like doing damage to these ads actually does nothing for your group. It's just pad on the meters. So I would love to see WoW Logs maybe nerf the damage or just take it out completely. And then that would definitely solidify rogues way above everybody else, and then we can kind of like get an idea at you know, which classes need balancing and stuff like that, because that's pretty crazy that rogues are that far ahead on damage that they can actually destroy hunters on the meters, even though hunters are padding on the ads, they're still getting beat, which is pretty crazy to me. All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the 6 target fight, Major Domo. This one should be interesting. On 6 target, wow. Wow, wow, wow. 5.6k DPS Druid. So Druid is right now the king of 6 target. And I would honestly tell you guys this, that I would be destroying everybody on 6 targets on this fight if these did not reflect. So one thing about all these guys on Major Domo is that these ads reflect occasionally. So half the time I'm just living bombing myself when I'm tab targeting and doing living bombs and stuff. So a lot of my living bombs are actually not going off. So there's a ton of wasted globals for me on this boss. And I really do think that I could do close to like 8,000 DPS if there was no reflect. However, I got #1 mage in the world on this fight, and I'm number 6 overall. This was probably my best fight of the entire pool last week. I'm hoping to beat all of the hunters in DPS this week. I don't see a ton of other mages. Okay, so there are some mages down here, but it's mainly hunters, and it's primarily because hunters don't suffer from the reflect mechanic, and druids don't either. We have some warlocks that are up here, but they get reflected, so I have a feeling warlocks would be way higher up on DPS. if they were not getting, if they weren't getting their shadow bolts reflected back at them. Warlocks would be very high over here. However, that extra 6 target is what brings their DPS down just slightly. And then on Ragnaros, this is primarily a single target fight, but melee have to run out and do the mechanic, whereas ranged DPS doesn't. So this is where mages are going to be the top ranged single target dealers. So you should see a lot of mages on Ragnaros. I actually died and lost my buffs on this kill, so somehow I still got 59th overall, but I had no world buffs on this kill and I was dead for the last 25%. So I imagine I'll be able to improve on my Ragnaros pull, possibly get number 1 in the world. I'm gonna fingers crossed on that this week, that I can get rank 1 on Rag for single target, but only because, like I said, the rogues typically have to run out a lot, or you can gamba and just run high fire res and hope that you don't get knocked back. I mean, it's a big gamble, but I'm hoping to beat the rogues this week on Ragnaros. And then the last boss is pretty interesting. I'm not really sure who would be number 1 in this last fight. It seems like rogues, and we have a lot of Chinese players in here on this one for some reason. And I didn't see a ton of Chinese players on the other one, so the Chinese people must be doing something different on this fight in order to have a lot of them in the top 100. Primal Flame Elemental, 500 DPS is being done to the ads. Okay, so he is padding on the ads a little bit, but the main thing is, you know, he's hitting the Molten Core. He's doing 2.7k single target DPS to the Molten Core. So only a little bit of extra damage to the ads over here, nothing crazy. So I think that that's pretty legit. But it's mainly a single target fight. So I would imagine a lot more rogues and melee DPS on this fight than anything else. I don't see very many mages on this fight at all. Maybe the mages could do single target DPS to the Molten Core, and then once the mobs group up a bit, they start maybe padding a bit on the ads by throwing some living bombs out. But I don't think it's worth it unless there's like 5 of them in a clump or something like that. So that's pretty much it for your overall DPS for week number 2, with Hunters on top, Assassination Rogues by far the number 1 DPS in the world, single target. Warriors not even coming close to them. Feral Druids a second for single target, followed by Hunters and Fire Mages for single target. And then for AoE, it's also Hunter, Feral Druid, Fire Mage, and then Affliction Lock with 5 target. So if you're wanting to do DPS, it's looking like the best overall classes to be is Hunter, followed by Fire Mage, and then Feral Druid. Sorry, Hunter, then Feral Druid, then Fire Mage, I think are probably the best overall classes in the game for single target and AoE. They're the only classes really able to hold their own in no matter what type of situation. However, Assassination Rogues are by far so superior in single target that their damage, like their AoE damage, doesn't really even, because they're bad in AoE, it doesn't even really matter, because they're so far ahead of the pack in single target damage that their numbers just kind of even out, even though people are padding their stats on ads, essentially. If you like these top DPS of the week breakdowns, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you live on twitch.tv/Shardako. See you next week.